Good morning, everybody. My name is Daniel Oppenheimer. I am the Land Program Director at the Hill Country Alliance, and I am thrilled to introduce our next speaker, Steve Nelle. He is a natural resource specialist. He's a hero. He's a mentor for many of us. He's going to talk about building stewardship one private landowner at a time. Steve, welcome.
Sure.
Here's the, thank you, sir. That's the forward.
I believe that's right. Yeah, and then
Yep, the big button is the forward. Yep.
thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. And it's very good to be here with you today to talk about a subject that's near and dear to me, that is supporting stewardship, one landowner at a time. This has been what I've tried to do during my 48-year career. So in one sense, this is going to be a summary of what I've tried to do during my professional life. And so we're going to look today at the landowner, the essence of stewardship, what is stewardship, and how you and I can go about supporting and encouraging land stewardship. I don't have to remind you that the Hill Country is a very special place. We all know why it needs to be managed and conserved and taken care of, whether it's the woodlands or the grasslands or the water resources or a dozen other. I don't have to remind you, already know that. That's really why you're here today. And I don't really have to remind you either that the Hill Country is primarily under private ownership. And I'm glad it is. The majority of the Hill Country is still owned by guys like this. Older generation, agricultural producers. We have to be able to engage and work with the traditional landowners, but we're also aware that there's a newer type landowner, and there's increasing numbers and increasing acreage and increasing proportion of land that is owned by the newer landowners, generally smaller places, often not in ag production, but they have other reasons why they own and love land and take care of the land. So we really need to be able to work with all kinds, small and large, all kinds of landowners. And it's so important that you and I understand that really our primary job is that we're in the people business. More so, or as much as in the water business, in the conservation business, in the wildlife business, whether we're working with larger groups, small groups, or whether we're working one-on-one, you and I are in the people business. That doesn't come naturally for some of us. We weren't trained that way, but we have to adapt and consider ourselves to be people persons. That's easy to do when you work with nice, cordial, lovely people who want you on their property, and they enjoy having you there, and it's a wonderful relationship. But there's also other kinds of landowners who are, may be resistant to your message. They may not know what you're all about. They may not trust you. And we have to be able to work with people like this too. And it's a challenge, but we don't just write them off. We have to work with them. We have to try to cultivate that stewardship relationship. And we first have to earn the right to be heard. We have to prove ourselves to them. They may not naturally be attracted to our message. So it takes some work and some dedication and some skill. A friend of mine who's a sixth-generation landowner described landowners this way. He He said, many landowners are by nature contrarians who pride themselves on independent actions and they're self-reliant. I found that to be true in so many cases. Independent, self-reliant, a little bit contrary. And so we just need to be aware that that's a true statement. And because of that, we should generally not tell people what they should do. That usually doesn't work real well in most cases. So we're not trying to do this in a regulatory mode or we're forcing people to comply with what we think. Instead, there's a much better approach. If we can learn to lead people, to educate them, to motivate them, to inspire them, to nudge them to do the right things, make it their idea. That's a much, much better approach, and that's how we will get results in the end. It requires the building of relationships. That's a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight, but that's what you and I really must do if we want to see changes on the landscape, and that requires patience, patience, patience. You can't rush it. We have to take the time to develop those relationships so that we earn their trust. And as we build those relationships, it's important that we remember two important things. One is that we must realize it's a privilege to be invited onto someone else's land. Their land is special to them. And if we act in a way that we realize it's a privilege to be out there, to be invited onto their farm or ranch or property, they're going to notice it, and that's going to help build that relationship. Secondly, to understand the responsibility we have, because we're going out on lands that are worth millions of dollars, literally. And the things that we advise on have the ability to either increase or decrease the value of that land. Not only the monetary value, but the ecological value. So that's a very high responsibility that we're advising. In a sense, we're advising them on the future asset value of that property. So it's a big responsibility. And whether it seems to be true or not, most landowners, their land is sacred to them. So understand that privilege, understand that responsibility that we have to be going out with them on their land. For many landowners that I've worked with over these years, there's a very real spiritual aspect of land stewardship. And here's how they would explain that. They would say, if God created everything that we call nature, and that if He then placed men and women in a position of responsible stewardship of that creation, that's a very, very strong motivation, and it's an inspiration. So whether you personally share that perspective or not, never overlook or underestimate the value of this spiritual aspect of land stewardship. It's very real, and it's very motivating for many landowners. So let's look now at sort of the essence of land stewardship. What is it in its most basic form? And it's really all about a person's relationship to a piece of land. That's what it boils down to. These are some of the people that I learned what land stewardship was by watching them, by listening to them, some of my mentors and people like this. This is kind of where I got a sense of land stewardship. I didn't learn it in college. I didn't learn it anywhere else. However, I was not able to put stewardship into words until I began to read the works of Aldo Leopold. And I hope you're all familiar with the Sand County Almanac. If it needs to be read periodically to refresh our minds on what the real essence of stewardship is. But Leopold codified in my mind, what stewardship is. So I saw it in action from landowners, and I read about what Leopold said about it. And so I want to share a couple of key passages that I think boil down what stewardship is. These are from a Sand County Almanac. It is inconceivable to me that an ethical relation to the land can exist without love, respect, and admiration for land, and a high regard for its value. So that's part of the equation. And in another essay, he wrote that a land ethic reflects the existence of an ecological conscience, and this in turn reflects a conviction of individual responsibility for the health of the land. Now that's quite a mouthful. The word stewardship is not there, but that is exactly what stewardship is all about. So this stewardship relation to the land is characterized by a love for the land, a respect for the land, an admiration for land, a high regard for the land, not just for its monetary value, not just for what it will produce, but for the land itself. It entails having a tender conscience toward the land. Your conscience is your sense of right and wrong. And that person will have this conviction of what is ethical and taking responsibility for taking care of that piece of land. This is the essence of land stewardship. And so from all of this, I'd like to offer this as a definition of land stewardship. It's a deeply held inner conviction that motivates landowners and land managers to care for and sustain the land that has been entrusted to them. And why do they do it? Partly, yes, for their own personal benefit, including financial benefit. That's part of it. For the benefit of future generations, that's a large part of it, but also for the benefits that accrue to society. And that is perhaps what sets apart the genuine land steward from just a landowner. They realize that what they do benefits and helps and affects other people. And so there's a great deal of benevolence involved in genuine land stewardship. So we could say that land stewardship is really about who a person is on the inside. It's about their values and their motivations and their inner attitudes toward the land. Sometimes we make a mistake in thinking that land stewardship means doing projects, doing brush control, doing rotational grazing, doing prescribed fire, doing native grass reseeding. But land stewardship is really different than those things. It's much more fundamental. Stewardship is not a list of practices. Land stewardship is not a suite of activities that a person might do, for example, to qualify for the wildlife tax valuation. Those things are not synonymous with stewardship, because stewardship is more about a person's connection and relation to the land. Leopold said that the landscape of any farm is the owner's portrait of himself. Think about that statement and what it means. I found it to be true that when you look at the land, you see the person. When you look at the person, you see the land. They are inextricably linked together. They are grafted into each other in a way that's a little bit difficult for the non-landowner to even comprehend. That relationship is so tight and so deep. There's another aspect of stewardship. You see that old man standing on the right-hand bank of the Blanco River? He's getting old. He's thinking, this is what he's thinking. Will my children and my grandchildren love this piece of land like I have loved it? Will they take care of this old ranch like I have tried to take care of it? That's what old land stewards think about. There's this there's this thought about the future. There's always this future element in land stewardship. Always. That's part of the stewardship equation. Not just doing what is right and good today or tomorrow, but infusing that into the next generation. So that's a really critical part of the stewardship equation. So how can you and I help to support and encourage land stewardship? It's important for landowners to know, it's important for you to figure out, who do you really work for? When you go out on a farm or a ranch, are you working for the landowner, or are you working for your own agenda or the agenda of your organization? Sometimes those are very compatible, but that landowner needs to know that I'm here for your benefit. And they will sense that if you are, and that will help build that relationship. And then you may not agree 100% with exactly what they're doing on their property, but nevertheless, remember, it's their land. Honor and respect their goals. If their goals and their methods are perhaps a little bit out of line, then that's where the nudging and the leadership and the inspiration comes in. But remember, it's their land, it's not your land, so we don't need to be superimposing our own preferences and desires onto someone else's property. And it's so important to realize the value of character and professionalism. Character qualities are like a catalyst in human relations. They're like lubrication. Character qualities will help that relationship to grow smoother, faster, and better. And people respond when we treat them professionally and with integrity and trustworthiness and work ethic. It goes a long way with landowners. So one of the character qualities that I think is indispensable is that you and I must cultivate a genuine sense of humility. You may go out there as the expert in something, but you don't need to come across as having all the answers. We go out there with humility, not acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. We're going to learn together. We're going to listen to each other. And landowners, I think, generally respond very well to humble advisors and people who have a humble attitude toward others and the land. So that's an important character quality. And we have to learn to listen. That comes more difficult for some people, but there's things you want to say, and there's things that probably need to be said, but first, listen to them. Talk to them so that they will listen. Listen to them so that they will talk. It's all about developing that relationship. And there will come a time when we can say what needs to be said, but we spend our first priority is listening to them and getting them to talk. And we're in the people business. We're also in the service business. And anyone in the service industry will tell you that it's important that we go out of our way, to provide exceptional service, not just good service, exceptional service. We always give more than what's required, and we go above and beyond their expectations. And if you do that, if that's your mindset of the service you're providing, they're going to take notice because they're not used to that kind of service. And it's going to help build that relationship, and they're going to be more likely to listen to you and take you seriously. So important. And then you and I, we do need to have some area of expertise. They haven't invited us out there just because we're nice people. There's something that you have and that I have that they need and they want. So you have to have a very special sense of expertise in something. Soil, water, plants, animals, ecology, whatever it might be. And so we develop our expertise, we cultivate it, and then you and I must be good stewards of our expertise and our abilities and our gifts. Give it away. Share it at every opportunity you can. Be anxious to share what you've learned with others. And if you do so with passion and enthusiasm, it's going to be contagious. And they're going to say, what can that guy get so excited about? And they'll listen to us. It's so important. And it will rub off on others, and you'll find landowners that are become excited about what you're excited about. And so that's just the way the human nature works. It has been said that those who do not understand nature are destined to deplete it. I have found that to be a true statement, and we see evidence of that all over the place. All you have to do is open your eyes. But the good news is, and the corollary to that statement, is that those who understand nature best are compelled to take care of it. The more we understand something, the more likely we are to conserve it and care for it. So that really makes our job a little bit more straightforward. Not easy, but straightforward, in that one of our primary jobs is helping people to understand nature better, to understand their property better. And the better they understand it, the more likely they are to take care of it. So there's always this element of always learning, always teaching, no matter the setting, always learning, always teaching, always learning, always teaching. We can't just store up the knowledge that we've gained in our head. Always learning, always passing it along to others. So our job is to become a great teacher. And here's a definition by William Ward. He said, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, but the great teacher inspires. So we need to develop our skills to where we can not only teach and explain and tell, not just be a good teacher, but to be a teacher that inspires others. And that's what's going to make people want to take better and better care of their land. Always teaching, always learning, always considering the future and the next generation. That little girl is one day going to own the 100 acres of her grandma. She's learning land stewardship right there. She's learning that relation to the land, that love for the land that's going to make her want to be a good steward when she becomes the owner someday. So how can you and I lead others in land stewardship? This is a guy that I work with in the Western Edwards Plateau. He's a very successful rancher, and he practices what is called stockmanship, which simply means skill in working with livestock. And it just so happens that the same elements that work in handling livestock work with people as well. Here's the elements of stockmanship. You move so that they want to move in the desired direction. You'll notice that he's not pushing those livestock, he's leading them. They're moving from one pasture to another. You make it their idea. It doesn't matter who gets the credit. You make it their idea. Not forcing, not pushing, not telling people what to do. Remember, this is what the cowboys will tell you. Slow is fast, and fast is slow. You try to rush things, you're going to get in a train wreck. Slow, gradual, building trust, developing the relationship. If you move properly, they will respond properly. And finally, it's all built on consistency and trust. Those cattle trust him. He knows those cattle. There's consistency, and they cooperate. And those same elements work when we work with people, not just with cattle. So that's how we can lead in land stewardship. And if we do these things, you and I are going to have plenty of satisfied customers. We're going to have people with a big smile on their face who are happy that we came out, who learned some new things, who are going to pass it on to others. We're going to have satisfied customers, whether it be traditional landowners, whether it be some of the newer landowners that are not involved in ag production. And what's going to be the result as we instill and lead in stewardship? What's going to be the result on the land? Well, in general, we can say that the soils are becoming more healthy. That's the basis of everything. And as the soils become healthy, we're going to have a healthy and functional water cycle, or moving that direction. We're going to have good wildlife habitat. It's good for many species. Stewardship provides the basis of productive and profitable agriculture. Most of us don't like to go very long between meals, and so agriculture is pretty important to mankind. And I want it to be profitable, because that's what keeps people on the land rather than moving to the city. And they're plowing those profits and those revenues back into the land. They're carrying out stewardship from those from the income they derive. So that's really important. And the natural beauty, the aesthetic values that everyone in here already knows about. But, you know, if agriculture feeds our bellies, then natural beauty feeds our hearts and feeds our soul, and they're both important. They're both important. And then we need to understand that when private land is taken care of, it benefits every man, woman, and child in Texas. And we need to continue to proclaim that message in every way we can, and everybody who will listen, the societal benefits of well taken care of private land. So I want to end here with a tribute to the land. It's a thing of great value, a thing of great beauty, worthy of our very best efforts to take care of it. Here's to the things that the land provides, whether it's water, whether it's livestock, livelihoods, wildlife, or a dozen other things. And here's to the people that own and manage and take care of the land, who take that stewardship responsibility seriously. And then here's to you, the organization, the Hill Country Alliance organization, but really to every individual in this room and everyone who is associated with the organization. The work you do is really important. I've just seen it grow exponentially, and so my hat's off to you. You have my greatest admiration and respect. Thank you for what you do, and let's just keep doing it, and let's get better and better at what we're doing, and the Hill Country will end up being a better place because of what you do and what I do. So thank you very much. That's the message I've come to deliver. I appreciate that very much.
We've got time for some questions.
I'm really hard of hearing, so talk right into that microphone.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Steve. That was a hell of a talk. I'm a fifth-generation Texan. I was raised with the expectation that we leave the land better than we found it. I'm now a pecan farmer in southwest Comal County, and I have embraced regenerative agriculture. You used the words sustainable and healthy soil. Could you comment on that, on sustainable or regenerative agriculture, which is a trend that's gaining a lot of momentum?
Okay, I think I heard most of that. You want to talk about sustainable ag and regenerative ag?
Yes, sir, and all of that being part of making the land better and more profitable and productive.
Yeah, so I guess sustainability has at least three facets. They're all important. One is obviously the ecological sustainability. We can all relate to that very well. Healthy soil, water, plants, animals, people. That's part of it. Economic sustainability, the land has to be generating money because it costs money to own and manage and take care of land. The money doesn't grow on trees, it comes from what's produced. So the economic factor is critical. And then there's another factor, though, the social factor. It has to be enjoyable enough to you and your family to keep you doing it, because agriculture and land management is hard work. It can be discouraging. It can be so laborious that our kids may not stay with it. So it's got to be made fun and enjoyable so that they're going to want to come back to the farm or the ranch and take over, and their grandchildren. So there's this social sustainability as well as economic and ecological. Sustainability has become a buzzword in many circles, and some of it is just for show. You'll see if you just type in sustainability and do a search, a lot of it's for show. People want to be considered sustainable, but landowners have to really and truly be sustainable. Regenerative ag, I think at this point, this is just my opinion and I could be wrong. Right now, it's sort of a buzzword. We're going to see if it persists. There's been all kinds of fads that come and go over time when it comes to farming or ranching, different methodologies. And we've seen them come and go, but if regenerative ag is here to stay, it's got to be ecologically, economically, and socially sustainable. And I think I see some good things happening, but I'm still not convinced that that's the way that it's going to save the world. So I see people who are practicing traditional ag, and they're doing it well. And I see people practicing so-called this regenerative grazing or regenerative ag, and they're doing well. So not everybody's on the bandwagon yet, and we're just going to have to see if it pans out like we hope it does. That's my comment on that.
Oh, right here. I'll yell at you, Steve. I'm going to give you a softball. I've known you for a long time now, and I've learned that one of your greatest attributes is your humility. I could turn that around and say one thing that you're terrible at is self-promotion. So you've written a great guide that is much more in depth of what you just presented, a guide for working with landowners. Many people, I think, in this room, whether they are conservation professionals or they have neighbors that they want to talk to and maybe educate a little bit, I think would benefit from reading that. My simple question is, tell these folks where they can find it and what's it called.
Daniel, you're going to have to interpret that for me. I'm really almost deaf. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Ryan. I'm sorry I couldn't hear very well. So you can tell that I've been a big admirer and fan of Aldo Leopold for quite a few years. Actually, when I was a senior in high school, my teacher said, "You guys got to do a book report." And I wasn't a big reader. I went and found a book that the cover looked interesting to me. Geese flying over the sunset. I said, I'll read that book. So I did, and the teacher noticed that it connected with me, and she encouraged me to follow up on what she perceived was an interest, and that's what solidified my desire to study natural resources. And so anyway, there's a book is going to come out in December that I've written. It's called Lessons from Leopold. It takes 55 of his most key ideas and sort of elaborates on them. How do they relate get to practical, everyday land management. So it's Aldo Leopold's philosophies made practical, I hope. And so that'll be, come out. And there's some flyers over here if you're interested. You can even get a 30% discount if you pre-order. But the other thing that Daniel asked me about, or Ryan, was that some years ago, we noticed that the young NRCS employees coming out of college and who are now in the field offices, many of them were not raised on a farm or a ranch. They did not have a connection with farmers and ranchers and agriculture. They had some knowledge. They had some knowledge that they learned in school, but they didn't yet know how to work with people, how to develop relationships with people, how to work cooperatively with landowners. So we developed a publication primarily for NRCS employees, but it applies to anyone. The keys in effectively working with private landowners. So I have a PDF of that booklet. If anyone is interested, you can contact me, I'll send it. But it's so important to even groups like this. If you go out on private lands, and if you don't already have this innate sense of working with landowners, you may find it useful. I wish I had had it when I got out of school. I had to learn it the hard way and make a lot of mistakes.
We've got a question from online from the folks attending virtually, so I'm going to ask you, and maybe I'll come stand closer while I do that. So this is a question coming from Williamson County specifically, but we can broaden it, and it's about what can neighbors do to engage their neighbors and neighboring landowners in not just stewardship, but in land conservation as well. How can neighbors contribute to a movement for land conservation that will keep more land out of becoming subdivisions?
Yeah, well, okay, obviously very important, especially in Williamson County and this whole corridor. So get to know your neighbors, become not just acquainted, not just to know their names, but really work with your neighbors. Be a good neighbor to them, and not just like across the fence, but get to know them, get to know their family, invite them to your place, have a barbecue, have a meal. A lot of ranchers do a lot of cooperative stuff. The neighbors help each other work cattle. They help them gather the crops in. So that's very natural in the ag community. Well, they were raised together. They know each other. Their kids played baseball together. They go to the same church. It's all about these relationships. So we have to foster relationships with whoever your neighbor is. And they may or may not be an old-time fifth or sixth generation, ag family, and they're probably not in Williamson County. We do the same sort of thing. It's very effective. They're called wildlife management co-ops. And in a lot of these small towns in the hill country, lots and lots of them, you'll have a property that's really too small to manage wildlife by itself. So they get with all their neighbors in a loosely organized organization called an association or a co-op, and they meet 2 or 3 times a year, and they have barbecue, and they have beer, and they visit with each other, and they talk about stewardship and conservation and deer management, and whether they should kill spikes, and whether they should plant food plots, and it's just a time of socialization and getting to know each other, but it's based on land management. And so the same thing could actually be done in a community of new landowners, getting to know your neighbors, invite them, have a theme, invite Bill Neiman, invite Daniel Oppenheimer, invite Elizabeth McGreevy to come talk about some aspect. People are interested in their land, and they want to hear from people who know what they're talking about. So that's my only advice, is to work at it, cultivate that relationship with your neighbors on all sides, and invite them, be cooperative, be cordial, learn from them, and they can learn from you.